Thank you, Anne. Thank you for having me. I feel really actually quite honoured to be asked back again because personally, I'm still struggling with calling myself an author because I write, but I think it was you, Anne, who said to me not long ago, you're actually an author because people are reading it. So, and I know amongst us, there are probably an awful lot of other people who are authors. Liz has got a beautiful book out at the moment, which I'm sure she'll be able to tell everybody about maybe at some point. But basically tonight, the premise of what we're talking about is not necessarily about my books, but my journey towards writing them. And also the main subject matter I want to touch on is the therapeutic benefits of writing and of channeling your spiritual knowledge through writing. I'm a real firm believer that, as you probably all are, that we're all on a journey and we're learning all the time. And sometimes I find myself very frustrated with, I feel like I've hit a brick wall, and I ask myself the question, well, why am I actually here? Am I going along the right path, or have I sort of dipped off the path? And what I've found is that by putting pen to paper, sometimes the answers come. In fact, often the answers come. Anne was kind enough to say that I'm quite intuitive. I like to think I'm intuitive for other people's benefit, but as a lot of us, when it comes to being intuitive for myself, all the barriers come down and my conscious mind kicks in and says, you know, come on, are you being sensible? If it's for someone else, then I just trust it. But if it's for me, sometimes I stumble over it. So, yes, so as Anne said, I'm a face and soul reader and a soul numerologist. And tonight I want to talk about how I channeled my awareness. I've had a lifelong awareness of other dimensions since I was very small. And maybe some of you who I've spoken with before are aware that I had a childhood illness when I was 3, and I had encephalitis, which caused inflammation of the brain. And I was in a coma for several weeks in hospital, and nobody was really sure if I was going to recover. But I remember everything that happened. Even, when I look back, when I meditate, I can remember the things that happened when I was 3, when I was 3.5, when I was in hospital. And although I was supposedly unconscious, I had an awareness, and I was aware of what was going on in the room, what was going on around me, and also other dimensions. And that has stayed with me all my life. And I've struggled in knowing how to deal with it because it's quite a burden, particularly when you're little and people are saying, no, there's nothing there, it's just a nightmare, whatever. You end up going back inward and feeling that you're the one out of step. And it's only as I've sort of matured that I've accepted that, these things are there. I've had some quite strong experiences, and fortunately I've met other people who have had the same experiences or similar. So as I've become older, I'm embracing it. So going back to the therapeutic benefits of writing, I've always loved writing, and I've always loved reading ever since I was small. It's been a great escape. And I wrote some very when I look back at it now, I wrote poetry when I was in my teens, and some of it is so morbid. I mean, you wouldn't believe it was so, if you read it back now, you think, oh my goodness, you know, she was in a bad place. But actually, I feel now looking back that that's, you know, when we're going through adolescence and we're going through all sorts of changes, at that moment in my life, there were some dramatic changes in my home life as well, which were quite traumatic for a teenager. And my way of dealing with it was to write poetry, albeit very dark poetry. But I believe it did help me. And when I moved here, which was 10 years ago, I moved to Dorset, previously having lived in Hampshire. And I think that's when my road to becoming an author was triggered, when I moved here. We looked all over. I mean, we looked in every county you can think of. And at no time did my husband and I consider Dorset as an option, because it felt too far away from our family and our friends. But we came and we viewed a house which was, you've probably all been there. I was so sick of looking at houses. I just wanted somewhere to put down roots. And we came and viewed a house that was totally not what we expected. It was everything that wasn't in our tick boxes. But we humoured the estate agent, came and viewed it, and I knew we had to live here, even though it didn't tick any boxes. And from that moment on, we did a lot of wandering around and travelling to local ancient sites. We're not that far from Badbury Rings. We're not far from Corfe Castle, Durdledore, Egerton Hill. All of those places triggered something in me. And I didn't know where it was coming from, but it was a real powerful emotion and a feeling of coming home. And considering I battled with coming here, I found that quite interesting. So yeah, I would regularly go wandering, but Badbury Rings was the place that really struck a chord with me. And while I was walking at Badbury, I suddenly became aware of this waves of deja vu of, I know this place. And yet I also know I've never been there in this lifetime. I just knew it intimately, and the smells, the everything about it, the landscape. And I even remember feeling the landscape had changed since I knew it, but it hadn't changed that much. There was some woodland where there wasn't before, and there was no woodland where there had been. But I just found myself disappearing into this almost like a story state. So the story was unfolding within me of who I was, what I was doing there, how I'd lived, who else had lived there. And I was so blown away by it that I came home and got on the computer and started to write about it. Now, it wasn't intended to be a novel. It was intended to be just me getting some thoughts down. And before I knew it, I couldn't get myself away from the keyboard, and it's just pouring through. And the story unfolded. So hence, that was my first novel, which has taken years to actually get out there. I mean, we're talking probably 8 years now since I started to write it. I've abandoned it a few times, come back to it. And in between times, I then wrote the little, I was encouraged to write the little Unleash Your Inner Psychic, because people that I'd worked with said to me, you need to put it down, because even though there are others out there, other books on the same subject or a similar subject, you've got your take on it. And that's, you know, so I wrote it in a way that was peppered with humour, and so that people wouldn't find it too much of a heavy read. And then once I'd finished that and got it out there, suddenly it started to flow again with the novel. So here I am, a few years down the line, in the process of finishing the second one. But I actually feel as if it has been quite therapeutic. And I spent a little bit of time, when I knew I was going to do this, you know, have this conversation with you, I spent a bit of time asking myself why it had made a difference and what difference it had made. And I came to the conclusion that some of the time I was writing for escapism, because during these last 10 years, there have been some difficulties, you know, some difficult personal stuff to get over, that I don't know if you do this, but sometimes when things are a bit tough, I get out of my body. In fact, I spend a lot of time out of my body, more out than in. But I found that writing was a way of actually staying in my body, but separating myself from the difficulties, the pain, the, you know, the issues that were going on around me. So I came to the conclusion that what I got from it was sometimes escapism, sometimes fun, because I could be who I wanted to be when I was writing. It definitely wasn't for profit, because, you know, I don't think anybody initially writes for profit, because I think it's hard to do it. I mean, Anne will back me up on that one. Anne's got a whole reams and reams of books. Is that the word? Reams of books? Libraries of books out there. And, you know, it takes a long time before you start getting anything back from it. So if you're thinking of writing for profit, then do it, but don't expect it, not initially. But I do think there are some incredible healing benefits. Yeah, so we've talked about, you know, the fact that it was triggered when I moved down here. I've got my notes to keep me on track here. One of the things that I found was that I did know what I wore. I did know who I was. And the thing that was really interesting for me was the fact that I had, in that lifetime that I'm remembering when I'm wandering around Badbury or close to Corfe Castle, the thing that struck me about Corfe Castle was it wasn't there in the lifetime that I remembered. The hill was there, but the castle wasn't. So, you know, we're going way, way back. But it did start to explain some of my likes and dislikes, my spiritual outlook, and my somewhat quirky traits. And it made me understand a bit more about why I was drawn to certain things and why I was repelled by others. And I think that what would be quite nice is if maybe, you know, tonight we can think about whether you have had experiences where you've been places where you've just had this overwhelming deja vu feeling, or feeling of, I can't be here. This, for some reason, I don't want to be here. Or a feeling of a pull to certain countries or cultures. Do you have any irrational fears or unusual traits? Are you drawn to foraging herbs, wild plants, even though you've always lived in a high-rise flat in the city? They don't go hand in hand. So, you know, we have to start asking the questions, why would I be drawn to those things? Are you convinced that you should be able to move things with the power of your mind? Because when I started to write my book, the things that I was seeing people doing in the book, I sort of knew that people could do that, and that we could do it again. You know, that is something that we have the ability to do if we're quiet enough, and if we're living a peaceful enough life. We can get in touch with those other dimensions and channel that that old historical energy that we had in former lifetimes. So, you know, maybe some of you have an affinity with astrology or tarot, crystals, even though you were brought up in a very strictly religious environment. I mean, that in itself, again, is a conflict in sort of, in interest, really, because, you know, I had one parent who came from a very religious background, which made it very difficult for me to accept that I had this quirkiness and this knowing. But the other parent came from a background of druids and bards and very spooky bunch that were always dancing around stones, and I think I've probably got a bit more of that in me than the other. But, you know, I wonder how many of us could unfold, because we're on this life journey of soul development. I wonder whether we could speed up our development by tapping into channeling spiritual information, tapping into former lifetimes and who we were and what we were able to do in those lifetimes. I just feel that somehow that my vibration, my light has got larger since I've been writing. And I don't know whether that's just, it would have happened anyway, or whether writing things down has helped. The other aspect that we come across with writing things down is the healing side of things. I know that Anne and many of us here in our work, one of the things that you encourage people to do, if they have something they need to get off their chest and they can't say it relationship-wise to the person, we say, well, write it down, write anything you like, you know, be horrid, be sweary, be angry, anything you want, and then burn it and let that energy go. And it does make you feel better. It's incredibly healing. And you may not notice it straight away, but within weeks and months, you get to a point where you think, oh, hang on a minute, I haven't got an issue with that person anymore. Or, I mean, one of the things I've got that is I've always felt it was an irrational fear, is I've got a fear of, you know, those long corridors that you sometimes get between tall buildings and shops. And during lockdown, where a lot of the shops have had a way in one side and a way out the other side, I didn't realize I still had this sort of almost irrational fear of going along narrow corridors. And recently I had to go to the pet shop locally, and you have to go along one side of Wilko to get to it. But it's a huge, long, narrow corridor. And I realized I couldn't walk along there on my own. Now, logic says, you know, if it was dark and, you know, middle of the night, then it probably wouldn't be the place to go. But it was broad daylight, loads of people around. I really couldn't go along that corridor, and had to go back and get my husband to walk up the side of this building with me. And bless him, long-suffering Rick, he just, you know, he just does it. He does it because he doesn't ask why. He just says, all right, okay, if I need to come, I'll come. But I don't have any living memory of anything iffy happening to me in a sort of a long corridor. But I used to get recurring dreams about a lifetime where I used to go sleepwalking, and it was in Victorian London, and I would go walking the streets in my nightie and bare feet. And I had this dream that I was, on one occasion, because I always used to wake up before I found out what happened, and then on one occasion I dreamt that I was abducted by these horrible people, and I was taken into a life that, you know, doing sort of dodgy things, living in almost in like under the sewers with other young girls, because I was a young girl, I wasn't very old. And I think maybe that's where that stems from, that fear of, because it in my dream and in my former lifetime, it was in tunnels, dark tunnels that were very claustrophobic and quite low to the ground. I mean, it could be that, it could be just my imagination, but I feel, and that came up while I was working out what I was going to talk to you about and reminded me. So that's something I'm going to have to do some work on. I'm going to do some writing on that, and I'll come back to you and let you know how it pans out. But I do think it might have something to do with that old dream. And I just think that if I were to sit and meditate on that fear or that phobia, I would be too nervous to relax into a state to get the answers. However, if I write in my journal, the writing process seems to calm something within me. And I came to the conclusion it's almost as if the actual writing process, the act of writing, creates a barrier between me and that fear. I mean, I don't know if that makes sense, but rather than accessing it through meditation, where because I'm very visual, I would be immersed in it, the act of writing for me creates a barrier. So it's almost like you've got a third person watching you. So I just feel that, you know, we can all benefit from writing down and expressing ourselves through writing. And the other thing that I thought was really, really interesting was that when I was thinking about, you know, how writing can help us, I was asking myself the question, you know, how does it help us? It can help you to feel better because you understand yourself more and your life experiences. So I think that possibly helps you to feel better. It also helps you to organize your thoughts. So if you're a bit overwhelmed, if there's too much going on, and you know, so you're not able to separate yourself from that, if you write, I know if I write, I find that it helps me organize my thoughts better. In the same way as, you know, some people turn to art to release their creativity and to release their stress. It helps you to empty your mind of negative or painful thoughts, helps you to confront your worries. If you actually put it down on paper, I mean, I don't know whether it is something you've ever tried, but if I'm really worried or I'm anxious and I don't know why, if I pick up a pen and start to ask my guides to give me some insight into why am I feeling like this? What am I fearful of? Straight away, I get answers. I get the answers like, I mean, it might just be a word. I might have, you know, betrayal or fear of failure or something like that. And the minute I get that and start to expand on it, just write, somehow it unlocks something, and it, you know, my guides or whoever is helping me channel that energy through, it becomes clearer and I feel less stressed about it. And it also you can do it to make sense of the behavior of others. It's not just your own issues. If somebody is, you know, behaving towards you in a way that's making you upset, by writing about it, sometimes that gives you clarity, because quite often it is a mirroring thing, isn't it? It's not necessarily them, it's normally coming from you, but you need someone to show you that, you know, they're pressing the sore spot. So by writing about it, it's helping you elevate your energy a bit and clear it away, and reevaluate maybe how you're being. I think that, you know, when we sometimes get these feelings of unexplained emotions like anger, sometimes we'll wake up feeling angry, and there's no real logic for why we feel angry. Something's obviously triggered it somewhere along the line. But if you can write about it, and it can help you moderate your emotional response to things and stop you kicking off over something minor. If you've got all your angst out on a piece of paper using a red pen, you know, get your red pen out across the page, you can feel that angst just sort of, so consequently it helps alleviate your stress. Apparently there was a British study into the psychology of writing, that when you write positive affirmations, you create positive emotions which trigger endorphins, and they help to alleviate stress and anxiety. Equally, if you write your negative feelings down, it's like overseeing your own personal counselling session, and you can improve your mental health. And my feeling is that, you know, get it down, get it out, and get it gone. And it does seem to work that way. And if you wish to oomph your brain power up, the suggestion is that you actually physically write with a pen rather than a keyboard, because it uses more motor neurons and senses than when you type onto a keyboard. Because I think when we type on a keyboard, it's almost like automatically driving your car. When we first start to drive a car, it's, you know, oh, mirror, oh, I have to do this, I have to do that. Eventually, we reach that point where it becomes an automatic thing. And I think that's the same with a keyboard. So if you can write, you know, physically write into a little journal, it is supposed to improve your memory and, you know, zhuzh up your brain cells, which I think we probably all could do with now, you know, but being in lockdown, it's all a bit, you know, same thing, different day. And I find myself all the time forgetting the words for certain things. But when I've been writing, I'm much more fluent. So it is a, you know, it is a therapeutic thing. So there are many reasons for writing. They can be to, you know, write yourself a book. And if you are able to tap into a former lifetime of yourself, then it's great fodder for your book. It's, if you were to meditate on maybe who you were in that former lifetime, just ask the question, call in your guides, ask the question, well, who was I? Why was I there? What did I look like? And when you're writing, particularly when you're writing novels, it's always handy to create a character sheet for people so that you don't forget what your character's, you know, traits are when you're going through the book. I mean, I'm sure Anne has probably done this, given, you know, or have a mood board. If you can do the same with your past life character, write down who they were, what they looked like, how they felt, what happened to them, and why it happened to them. Firstly, you're doing some healing for yourself, because you may well find that issues that you have in this current lifetime have parallels. You may well have reached an age, where the same age as you were in that lifetime, where you had an issue that was unresolved. By creating a character and writing it down and putting it on paper, not only are you healing yourself, but you're creating, you know, a potential bestseller. You know, because it is going to be so authentic. It's going to be so filled with all the five senses, all the energy from the five senses. You know, you're creating something that's real. It's really tangible. So that's another thing you could use it for. what I find is that when I write, my inner light shines stronger. The whole process helps me to connect with the authentic me, regardless of what I'm writing about. And along the way, you access all the hidden corners that, you know, you can access the Akashic records and find out, you know, where next, why, or what happened before to make me this way. You can talk to your guides and get information from them. You can ask your angels, but you never know what you're going to end up channeling. You could end up channeling some undiscovered Charlotte Bronte novel that she didn't get a chance to write. I mean, you might just access that, which would be quite cool, or Mark Twain, or, you know, whoever. So it is a very powerful tool. So I feel that in the quietness of lockdown, we have the perfect opportunity to tap into the pool of our unique soul wisdom. And this is the perfect time to help yourself move along your life path and move towards enlightenment, or whatever you want to call it, but just to elevate the spiritual vibration of yourself. While we're in lockdown, we have the perfect opportunity, and we have the perfect opportunity to tap into whether or not we were a shaman or a Native American or an ancient Egyptian, and what our life was like, and how that can help us in this current present lifetime. Because I believe there is so much information that it's just there to be accessed if we quieten our minds and take our pen and allow that information to channel through into the pen. And one thing that I don't know if any of you have ever done automatic writing. It's not everybody's cup of tea. It can be a little bit unsettling when automatic writing is basically where you allow spirit to channel words or messages through you. It can come from your guides, or it can come from people who've passed on, who have got messages they want to, want to send through. That's not everybody's cup of tea, and it's not always that comfortable. But it is quite powerful. And one of the things that I always say, that if you're going to do any form of spiritual writing, so regardless of where it's coming from, you're going to do any spiritual writing, if you start off with a nice blank sheet of paper in front of you and take a pen and write with your non-dominant hand. So if you're a right-handed person, take your pen or pencil in your left hand and just start by scrolling, doing circles or scrolling on the paper and letting it flow. And then get yourself connected. So your breathing is slowed down and you're connecting, you call in your guides and your angels, and just keep going with your non-dominant hand. And what I find nearly always happens with me is I end up going into the infinity symbol as I'm doing it. And then at some point, energetically, I feel a shift in my energy field, as if my guides have stepped in, or I have an angel sort of coming into my sort of aura, ready to write. And then I swap to my dominant hand and I allow the writing to come through. And some of the information that comes through is incredibly powerful. Sometimes it's just pictures and images. But when you're in that state, if you feel confident and you've called your guides and your angels in and you've got your protection around you, you can ask all sorts of questions about if you know you're talking to your guides, your spirit guides or your guardian angels, ask them how you deal with an issue you have. Where do I go next? What do I do? And allow them to implant the words or the thoughts into your head, and whatever comes, just write it down. Don't challenge it, just write it down. And then when the writing finishes, ask another question. They're always happy to help, because I find that once you give them free rein, it's like, woo, you know, it comes through thick and fast. But you can find out an awful lot about yourself as well, and that's quite powerful. But outside of that, if you're not into that, then it's also a really good tool for disengaging your left brain, using the non-dominant hand to just draw, and then try and write your name with your non-dominant hand. And then you'll find that you want to, there'll come a point where you just feel energetically different. You'll need to change hands, and it will come. And sometimes I do this if I'm stuck, when I'm actually novel writing, I will do that, and I'll get a couple of lines through the pen, and then I can go onto the keyboard because I'm engaged, and it flows through. So that's how it works for me. But I think it would be really nice to see if you guys have got anything that needs to come through to you. And maybe if we just do, if Anne's okay with it, I don't know how we are for time, if we do a little, what's the time? Have we got time to do a little?
Absolutely fine for time, sweetheart. Yeah, absolutely.
Okay, so if everybody is happy to do this, if you have some paper and a pen anywhere sort of close by that you can put with, it doesn't matter if you don't, because the way this is going to work is you will be seeing it and it will be given to you later if you need it. But if you can get yourself a piece of paper, and we'll just have it, we'll do a very short meditation, which you won't be in deep meditation, but a short meditation just to bring in some creativity and bring in anything that you need an answer to. So arm yourself with anything you want to ask a question about, or if you should be writing a book, if you should be writing a novel or a non-fiction, ask the question, what should I write about? How do I start? So what we'll do is, if we start to get the juices flowing, the creative juices flowing. So when you're ready, I don't want you to get your pen and paper out at the beginning because you won't be able to meditate. So if you leave your pen and paper for after, and get yourself into a nice comfy space. And if you're sitting, see if you can sit with your back nice and straight, because I always find that if I'm channeling for writing, the straighter your back, the straighter the path of the information. So when you're ready, if you'd like to just take a few nice deep breaths and close your eyes. And breathe in deeply. Breathing in through your nose and breathing out through your mouth and letting go. Breathe in through your nose. Breathe out through your mouth and letting go. Allow yourself to relax into a rhythm. And the next breath, work on breathing in through your nose, out through your mouth. And as the breath leaves your body, see it going into a figure of 8. So as you breathe away, curving into a figure of 8, and as you breathe in, curving into a figure of 8. Perfect. Breathing in deeply, breathing in peace and relaxation. Breathing out and letting go. And as you continue to breathe, see your breath in a beautiful figure of 8. And at the point where the breath crosses in the center of your figure of 8, that is where you store your pool of wisdom. So breathing out and letting go, breathing in, touching on your pool of wisdom and creativity, breathing it into your lungs, and as it breathes into your lungs, allow it to spread out into your heart center, and breathing out. Breathing in, peace, touching on the pool of wisdom and creativity, bringing it into you, into your heart center, breathing out and letting go. So as you calm your mind, continue to breathe slowly and calmly, and open your heart, and we're going to summon your primary guardian angel. We're going to call in Archangel Michael to wrap his wings around you. So knowing you're in a beautiful, safe space. Open your heart and allow your guardian angel to fill it with love and peace. And your guardian angel is going to open a harmonious channel for you. Only the purest, highest vibrational creativity and love and light is going to be channeled through your heart center. So breathing in, and as you touch that central pool of creativity and wisdom, allow it to be brought into your heart center. And note that as you carry on this process, the light in your personal energy field at the end of this session will be higher in vibration and filled with spiritual information, which is always encoded in light. So breathing in deeply, breathing out and letting go. And I want you to imagine you're sitting in a beautiful golden temple. And this is the temple of the authentic you. This is where you go to receive your highest wisdom, the purest information, the purest knowledge. And while you're in this place, only the purest light and wisdom and creativity is going to channel through you. In front of you, I want you to imagine there is a candle flickering in the light, sending glowing images all around you. And as you Smell the wax of the candle and see the candle flickering. Take a few moments to feel the presence of your guardian angels and your guides around you. And if you have a question that you need answered or you need clarity on, it can be anything. Now is your time to connect with your guides and your angels. And Archangel Gabriel will step in and help translate that information back to you. So when you come out of your meditation, the answers will be residing in your energy field. And regardless of whether you write down the answers now or later or tomorrow, they will be residing in your energy field. All the purest positive answers. So take a few moments to ask your questions. And know that if you don't feel you have enough time to gather that information, it will be stored in your energy field. It will be stored in your heart center, and it will be wrapped in the love of your guardian angel, ready to come out when you're in the place where you can receive it quietly and calmly and make sense of it. So breathing in deeply, breathing out and letting go. Know that that knowledge is now stored in your energy field in preparation for when you open your eyes and you come back into the room, whether it be past life information, just purely something you need to know. It will filter through when you need it. And you know that information will be cocooned in angelic, pure, golden, healing light. So in a few moments, when you're ready, take a few deep breaths and then start to become aware of being back in the room. You take notice of the chair beneath you, the ground beneath your feet, and you're back fully in the present in 2021, back at Conscious Cafe, ready to write the world's next bestseller or answer all your questions. And if you feel you need to write anything down now, then jot it down. But don't feel under any pressure because it will come to you later. And at that point, I think I'll hand it back over to Anne.
Oh, thank you. So lovely. Very interesting and very, very interesting. And so much resonated with me. And what I always believed in about the ability to, as you connect to the spirit, how your own creativity starts to flow, and I absolutely believe in it. And when you were talking about, you know, Debbie was saying it makes you one step removed when you start writing to get away from your fears. I so really get that, because we move the energy when we move the words onto paper. It's actually energy. Everything is energy, of course, and as we write, the energy goes onto the paper. So powerful, powerful stuff. And why wouldn't we be spiritual channels? I mean, we're all beautiful beings of spirit, so you've really guided us in the right way now. And you might be writing for yourself. I wrote a poem about my father, who left my mother the day I was born. Get up, I'm out of here. But it didn't hit me too badly, but when I was in my 20s on holiday, I decided to write a poem suddenly started to come. And I wrote, "I forgive you, Father." It was a poem, and personal to me, but so cathartic. I felt that something I had pushed really deep down inside me came out and went onto the paper and into the poem. And I like poetry as a way of clearing things. Good way of clearing the air as well. Yeah, so I really resonate with that. And of course, I also find that my trilogy, which is still a bit like yours, grinding forward, very slow pace at the moment, is, again, I use my experiences as in my past life as an Egyptian priest, even to the point that I went to the museum, the London British Museum, where all the Egyptian artifacts are, and I actually found his name, because the minute I saw it, I just went whoosh, all over, like a whooshy. So I very much resonate with everything you said. It's been lovely. Thank you so much. Bless you. That was really, really good. And I think, has anybody got any questions they'd like to ask Sashi before we all delve into our own experiences and sharing details of things that have happened for us? Has anybody got any questions?
I'm just having a quick look to see if what. Oh, bless you. That's lovely, and yeah, it does. And thank you, Emma, by the way, and thank you, Debs. Yeah, I do think that is the thing. It's like having your own personal counsellor.
Yeah.
Because we can't always have someone, particularly in lockdown, when you are separated from the people that you would probably sort of Twitter onto and drive crazy. It's quite nice to think that you can be your own counsellor to a certain extent.
Definitely. Really, really good.
Thank you, Tamara. That's lovely. Thank you.
So just to remind you that if you want to develop your psychic powers, Sashi's book is perfect for that, and we're waiting for the next one in the trilogy to come out. Do you think, just a question I will ask you, are you thinking of self-publishing all of your books, or are you, when you've written the trilogy, the 3 books, you said there were 3 in your series, will you be looking for a publisher, do you think?
That's a good question, because as you know, I had a bit of a journey towards traditional publishing, which was 2 years of agony. And what did come out of that was I was encouraged to write the little non-fiction one and self-publish that on Amazon. And I did that, and that helped. It gave me the confidence to go forward, because I actually got to a point where I thought, is there any point in publishing this? I do feel that when I get to 3 in the pot, the trilogy, maybe I'll think about traditional publishing again. Whether or not that would be considered, because I have self-published through Amazon. I know some publishers will take you on, and particularly if you get a following. So that.
Yeah, we're your following.
But the bottom line for me is it was never really about being published. It was more about achievement. And I wanted to write the first book for my dad. I wanted him to say, "Oh, you clever girl, well done." Sadly, he passed away just before I published the novel, but he did actually get to see me, the non-fiction out there, and he was very proud and used to say to everybody, "Oh, my daughter's an author." Oh my goodness, I've put out this little, this little spooky book. He wasn't quite so forthcoming when they asked what it was about. He'd say, "Oh, well, it's quite sort of niche." Niche was the word he used, which is rather lovely. But I did feel a sense of achievement. And somebody once said to me, as a writer, if somebody said to you, "Yes, we'll publish your book, but we won't, your name will not be on it," how would you feel about it? Now that's something that's quite a powerful thing to meditate on. I realized it wouldn't matter, because I would know I'd done it, and I would know I'd achieved it.
Yeah.
And there is something rather lovely about holding that book in your hand and feeling it and thinking, "Oh, I did that. Because I'm someone who is not particularly good at completing things. When things are about to get really good, I panic and I back off. I mean, Deb's will back me up on that, and you, Anne, you're always sort of both of you are always saying to me, "Why don't you do so and so?" And I go, "Oh, I don't know. I don't think I can." And it's almost a bit of self-sabotage. But anyway, yes, so I will see. Thank you, Tamara.
Yeah, thank you,
Thank
Tamara.
you. I'm whittering on now, but I think I might consider it, but it's not compulsory for me.
I like the whole idea of just writing it for the sake of writing it, and
it's the journey,
because that stops you being put off by the big challenge of getting it in print.